I chose family over my dream, but not anymore. For as long as I could remember, my dream had been clear. It wasn't just some passing ambition or a childhood fantasy I would outgrow, it was who I was. I wanted to travel, to create, to build something that was truly my own. I wanted to chase the kind of success that wasn't handed down or expected, but earned. But family had a way of changing things. And for years, I let them. It started small. You'll always have time to chase your dreams later, my mother would say when I was in high school, pushing me to focus on family first. But right now, we need you here. I listened because that's what you do when you're young and you think your family knows best. When my younger sister needed help with school, I tutored her instead of going to my club meetings. When my father lost his job, I picked up extra shifts after school to help with bills. By the time college came around, I had my acceptance letter in hand, a full scholarship to a university across the country, an opportunity to study in a field I loved. But when the time came to pack my bags, my mother sat me down at the kitchen table, her eyes tired, her hands wringing together the way they always did when she was anxious. "I don't know what we'll do without you," she said quietly. "Your sister's still so young, and your dad, you know how hard things have been." I hesitated. "I just don't see how we'll manage if you go." So I stayed. I convinced myself it was temporary, 1 year, maybe 2, and then I'd leave. But 1 year turned into 3. I got a job close to home instead of taking internships elsewhere. I put my dreams on hold again and again and again. Every time I thought about leaving, there was always another reason to stay. A crisis, a hardship, a moment when my family needed me. Until I woke up one day and realized years had passed, and I was still exactly where I had started. Still putting my dreams on hold. Still sacrificing everything for a family that only seemed to take. And something inside me snapped. The final straw wasn't even something dramatic. It wasn't a screaming match or some devastating betrayal. It was a single moment, so small, so seemingly insignificant that it almost didn't feel real. I had been at work, exhausted from another 12-hour shift at a job I never wanted, when I got a call from my mother. "Hey, can you pick up your sister from school?" I sighed, rubbing my temple. "Mom, I told you I'm working late, I can't." "I know," she said, "but I already made plans. I need you to do this." I hesitated. "Did you ask Dad?" "He's busy." "What about?" "Why do you always have to argue?" she snapped, frustration clear in her voice. "You act like I'm asking you to move mountains. Just pick up your sister, it's not a big deal." Not a big deal. That's when it hit me. The sacrifices I had made, the years I had given up, the dreams I had put on hold. They didn't see it. They didn't appreciate it. They just expected it. And in that moment, something inside me changed. The guilt that had kept me tied to them, the obligation that had held me back for so long, it all faded away. For the first time in my life, I saw my family for what they really were. And I realized I had wasted enough time. That night, I made a decision. I was leaving. Not next year, not when things got easier, not when my family finally gave me permission to live my own life. I was leaving now. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Leaving was the easy part. Or at least that's what I had thought. Making the decision had been the hardest thing I'd ever done, but in reality, it was nothing compared to what came next. The moment I told my family, everything exploded. I decided to break the news over dinner. I figured it was best to do it when we were all together, when I could say it once and not have to go through the same exhausting conversation multiple times. I had practiced the words in my head all day, but when I opened my mouth, my voice still came out shaky. "I'm moving," I said simply, setting my fork down, "next month." Silence. Then my mother let out a laugh, one of those dry, humorless chuckles that carried more disbelief than amusement. "What do you mean you're moving?" I swallowed, keeping my voice steady. "I mean I'm leaving. I already got a job lined up. I found a place. I'm going." My father barely looked up from his plate. "You're not serious." "I am." Another silence, this one heavier. "And what about us?" my mother demanded. "What about your sister? What about this family?" I clenched my jaw. "I've spent years putting everyone else first. I've done everything you've asked me to do, but it's time I do something for myself." "We never asked you to stay," she shot back. "You chose to." I almost laughed, almost. "You're really going to sit there and pretend like I had a choice?" She scoffed, shaking her head. "So what, you're just going to leave us behind? Just abandon everything because you've suddenly decided your dream is more important than your family?" "It's not sudden," I said, my voice sharp. "It's been building for years. I just never had the courage to do it before." My father finally spoke. "And what happens when you fail? Because you will fail. Life isn't some fairy tale where you just run off and everything magically works out. You think you're going to be happy chasing some fantasy. I met his gaze unflinching. Even if I fail, at least it'll be my failure, not the failure of someone who never even tried. That hit a nerve. His grip on his fork tightened, his jaw set, but he didn't argue. Selfish, my mother muttered under her breath, after everything we've done for you. That was when I realized there was no winning, no magical argument that would make them see my side, no perfect words that would make them understand why I had to do this. So I stopped trying. I took a deep breath, pushing back my chair. I'm leaving, whether you support me or not. And with that, I stood up and walked away. The next few weeks were hell. I had expected pushback, but I hadn't anticipated just how far they would go to try to keep me from leaving. The guilt trips, the silent treatment, the constant manipulation, my mother crying about how much she sacrificed for me, my father throwing out every insult he could think of, my sister asking if I even loved them anymore. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I held firm. Until the final blow came. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back, my father said one night, his voice cold, distant. You want to go? Fine, but you don't get to run back here when you realize how stupid you're being. I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment where everything changed. And I was ready. Then I guess this is goodbye. I turned, grabbed my bag, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. The first night alone in my new apartment was surreal. It was small, barely furnished, and had a strange echo when I walked across the wooden floor, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I wasn't drowning in obligation. I was free. But freedom, it came with a cost. Because what I hadn't realized, what I never expected, was just how hard it would be to let go of the people I had spent my entire life sacrificing for. Even when I knew they had never done the same for me. Leaving felt like a victory at first. That first night in my new apartment, I told myself that this was the fresh start I had been waiting for. No more guilt, no more sacrifices, no more putting my life on hold for people who only seemed to take. I sat on my barely furnished couch, looking around at my new space, and tried to soak in the feeling of freedom. But what I didn't expect, what no one ever tells you, is that freedom can be lonely. The first week was filled with small victories. I set up my apartment, arranged my things just the way I wanted, ate whatever I wanted without anyone commenting on it. I came and went as I pleased, and no one asked me where I was going or when I'd be back. For the first time in years, I was living for myself. But then the silence settled in. No more background noise of my mother's voice calling my name, no more half-heard conversations in the other room, no more last-minute "can you do this for me?" requests, just quiet. It was deafening. I caught myself instinctively checking my phone, expecting a message from my family, some sign that they missed me, that they were thinking of me, but my notifications stayed empty. They meant what they said when they told me not to come back. I tried to push through it. I forced myself to enjoy the space, to focus on the reasons I left, but some nights the doubt crept in. Had I made a mistake? I had always dreamed of leaving, of making something of myself, of following my own path, but now that I had taken the first step, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a bridge with no idea if I should go forward or turn back. I had given everything to my family for so long that I didn't know who I was without them. I was free, but I felt lost. One night I caved. I pulled up my mother's number and hovered over the call button. I told myself I just wanted to check in, to see how they were doing, to prove to myself that I didn't need them to validate my decision. But deep down, I knew the truth. I just wanted to hear her voice. Just as my thumb was about to press the button, my phone buzzed. A text. From my sister. Hey. That was it, just one word, but my heart pounded as I stared at the screen. I waited a few seconds, wondering if she'd say more, but nothing else came. I hesitated before typing back. Hey, how are you? A full minute passed before the dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Then finally, Mom and Dad are still mad, but I miss you. I swallowed hard. I had prepared myself for my parents' anger, their resentment, but my sister, I hadn't really thought about what this meant for her. She had been the one I had stayed for the longest. I had convinced myself that she needed me, that if I left, she wouldn't have anyone else, but she had been the one to reach out first. Maybe she didn't need saving as much as I thought. I miss you too, I texted back. You can always call me, I'm still here. Her reply came quickly. I know, I just don't want them to find out. I clenched my jaw, so that's how it was. She had to keep her relationship with me a secret because to my parents I was still the enemy. I hated that, but I understood it. Whenever you need me, I typed, I'm not going anywhere. That night, something shifted in me. Yes, I felt alone. Yes, I missed them despite everything, but I also knew I had done the right thing. I had spent my entire life believing that putting myself first was selfish, but now I saw the truth. Staying would have destroyed me. I had chosen freedom, but I had also chosen myself. And for the first time, I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Freedom came at a price. I had told myself that once I left, life would instantly get better, that I would wake up every morning feeling liberated, unburdened, and finally whole. But reality had a way of humbling me fast. Bills piled up quicker than I expected. Rent, utilities, groceries, it all added up. I had savings, but they were dwindling faster than I had planned. I was working long hours at a job that barely covered my expenses, and some nights I lay awake in bed wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. The worst part, I had no one to talk to about it. I couldn't run to my parents and admit that I was struggling. They'd only use it as proof that they were right, that I wasn't capable of making it on my own, that I needed them. And my sister, she was still sneaking messages to me, but they were brief, careful, she couldn't afford to get caught. So I carried the weight alone. I worked extra shifts. I cut corners where I could, eating cheap meals, walking instead of taking the bus, saying no to social plans because I couldn't afford them. And slowly, painfully, I started figuring things out. But the loneliness never left. I had spent so much of my life surrounded by my family, whether I wanted to be or not, that I had never really learned how to be alone. The quiet felt suffocating. There were nights when I'd sit in my tiny apartment, staring at the walls, wondering if this was really living. And then out of nowhere, I got a call. From my mother. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Part of me wanted to answer immediately, to believe that this was her way of reaching out, of making amends. Another part of me hesitated, remembering all the things she had said before I left, remembering how easily she had cut me off. After 3 rings, I picked up. Hello. There was a long pause, then a sigh. So, are you done pretending yet? My heart sank. Excuse me. Are you done playing this little game? She asked. Or do you still think running away was a good idea? I clenched my jaw. I didn't run away. I left because I had to. She scoffed. And look where that got you. I heard you've been struggling, working extra shifts, barely getting by. Is that really the life you wanted? I felt my grip tighten on the phone. I'm figuring it out. Sure, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. You know, it's not too late to come back. I inhaled sharply. Come back. Yes, she said smoothly. Come home, admit you made a mistake, and we can forget all of this. You can stop pretending to be independent. It was like a slap to the face. All this time I had hoped foolishly that maybe she had changed, that maybe she missed me, that maybe deep down she wanted to mend things. But this wasn't an olive branch, it was a leash. No, I said firmly, I'm not coming back. Silence. Then her voice turned sharp. Don't be stubborn, you're making life harder for yourself for no reason. No reason, I let out a hollow laugh. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about being stubborn, it's about finally living my own life, and I won't apologize for that. She sighed dramatically. Well, don't come crying to me when you realize you can't do it. I won't, I said simply. And this time I was the one to hang up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, my hands still trembling. That conversation had confirmed everything I already knew. My family wasn't waiting for me to succeed. They were waiting for me to fail. And for the first time, I wasn't just fighting to survive. I was fighting to prove them wrong. The moment I hung up that call, something inside me shifted. For so long, I had been driven by the idea that my family would eventually come around, that one day they'd understand why I left, why I had to carve my own path. But that call made one thing painfully clear: they weren't waiting for me to succeed. They were waiting for me to fail. And that lit a fire inside me like nothing ever had before. I threw myself into work. I picked up extra hours, volunteered for overtime, and even started looking into side gigs. If I had to struggle, fine. But I wasn't going to let them be right. I wasn't going to crawl back to them and prove that I had needed them all along. No, I was going to show them that I could survive without them. The exhaustion was real. I was burning myself out at a rate I had never experienced before. But every time I felt that creeping doubt, every time I considered giving up, I replayed my mother's words in my head. Don't come crying to me when you realize you can't do it. I clenched my jaw and worked harder. A month passed, then another. I was still barely scraping by, but I was doing it alone. And little by little, things started to change. My paycheck covered more than just the basics. I was no longer counting every dollar, no longer surviving on instant noodles and canned soup. I was building something. Then something happened that I hadn't expected. I got promoted. It wasn't anything major, just a small step up at work, a bump in pay, a little more stability. But to me, it meant everything. It was proof that I was moving in the right direction, proof that I wasn't failing like they all expected me to. And that night, for the first time since I left, I let myself breathe. A few days later, I got another text from my sister. Mom says she hasn't heard from you in a while. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the screen. I could already see where this was going. I typed back, she knows why. A minute later, the reply came through. She won't say it, but I think she's waiting for you to come back. I exhaled slowly, I'm not coming back. I know. There was a pause and then I'm proud of you. I swallowed the sudden lump in my throat. Out of everyone, my sister was the one person I had worried about leaving behind. And even though I knew she still felt torn between loyalty to our parents and her connection to me, those 4 words meant more than she would ever realize. Thank you. And that was the end of that conversation. Weeks passed and things continued to improve. My routine became mine, no longer dictated by obligations to anyone else. I made friends outside of my old world, people who saw me for who I was, not who I had been in relation to my family. I started dreaming again, planning again, thinking about what I wanted out of life instead of constantly making sure everyone else was okay. I was finally living. Then the final test came. One evening, as I was heading home, I got a call from my father. For a moment, I debated letting it go to voicemail, but something in me told me to pick up. Hello. So he said, his voice measured, controlled. You're really doing this, huh? I knew what he meant. Yeah, I said simply, I am. There was a pause. Your mother misses you. I felt my throat tighten. No, she doesn't. She misses controlling me. He didn't deny it. Instead, he sighed. She's stubborn, you know that, but you're still her kid. Am I? Because the last thing she said to me was that I shouldn't come crying to her when I fail. And have you? He asked. Failed? I let out a breath. No, I haven't. There was a long silence before he finally said, good. For a brief second, I thought maybe, just maybe, this was his way of making peace, but then he spoke again. You know, it's still not too late to come back. I clenched my jaw. I don't need to come back. So that's it, he said, you're done with us. I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. I'm just done being controlled. Another pause. Well, do what you want, but don't expect us to be here when you change your mind. My grip tightened on the phone, but my voice was steady. I won't. And with that, the call ended. I stood there for a long moment, staring at my reflection in a nearby window. The person looking back at me wasn't the same person who had left home months ago, unsure, afraid, desperate for approval. I was stronger now. I had built something for myself. And most importantly, I had nothing left to prove to them. The strangest thing about growing into yourself is realizing that the version of you that once existed is completely gone. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly feel transformed. It happened slowly over time, in the way I carried myself, in the choices I made without hesitating, in the confidence that came from knowing that I could survive on my own. But the biggest shift, it wasn't in what I did, it was in what I no longer needed. I no longer needed their approvals. For so many years, I had been shaped by my family's expectations, by the guilt they placed on me, by the obligation that had kept me stuck in a life that wasn't my own. But now I was making choices for me. I didn't need to second guess whether my decisions would make them happy. I didn't have to worry about how my dreams fit into their plans. For the first time, I was free to want things without feeling selfish for it. One night, as I sat on my small balcony overlooking the city, I thought about how much had changed, how much I had changed. The old me would have been crushed by my father's words. The version of myself that had stayed behind for so long would have folded under the weight of knowing my family was disappointed in me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I still missed them, of course, I did. There were nights when I thought about my mother's cooking, my sister's laughter, even the routine of it all. But missing something doesn't mean you belong there. It just means it was once a part of you. And I was learning to let go. I didn't realize just how much I had grown until an opportunity came my way that would have once terrified me. A new position opened up at work, one with more responsibility, better pay, and a chance to move up even further. The kind of opportunity that, before, I might have hesitated to take because I would have been too afraid of failing. But now I went for it without hesitation. And I got it. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the proof that I was thriving despite everything my parents had assumed about me, proof that I didn't need to crawl back to them, proof that leaving had been the right decision all along. And this time, I didn't even feel the need to tell them about it. I didn't need them to be proud of me. I was proud of myself. Weeks passed, then months. My sister still texted me in secret, keeping me updated on life back home. My mother never reached out again. My father had made his stance clear in our last conversation, and maybe in another life I would have been hurt by that. But now I accepted it for what it was. Not every relationship is meant to be repaired. Some bridges need to be burned. I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. I had already won. One day I woke up and realized something had shifted. For so long, I had been running from my family's expectations, from the weight of their control, from the guilt they had placed on me for choosing my own path. I had spent months proving to them and to myself that I could do it, that I could survive, that I could thrive without them. But now I wasn't running anymore. I was simply living. It wasn't some grand revelation. It didn't come with fireworks or a cinematic moment of clarity. It was something much simpler, much quieter. I was making my morning coffee, standing in my tiny apartment, scrolling through messages from friends, and suddenly it hit me. I was happy. Not just in the things are finally getting better kind of way, but in the I love my life kind of way. I had built something from scratch. I had proven to myself that I was more than just a product of my family's expectations. I had taken control of my own story, and for the first time in years, I wasn't second-guessing it. I wasn't waiting for their approval. I wasn't waiting for them to reach out, to suddenly understand, to welcome me back with open arms. I was done waiting. One afternoon, I got a message from my sister. "Mom mentioned you today." I stared at the words for a long moment before replying. What did she say? She asked if I had talked to you. I think she wanted me to say no, but I told her I still do. I swallowed hard. How did she react? She didn't say anything at first, then she just nodded and walked away. I exhaled slowly. It wasn't much, but it was something, a crack in the walls she had built between us. But I didn't let myself get caught up in it. If there was ever going to be a conversation, it would have to come from her. I wasn't going to chase after people who had made it clear they didn't want me around. I had done that for too many years already. Weeks passed, life moved forward. I continued working hard, making plans, setting new goals. I started traveling, nothing extravagant, just small weekend trips to places I had always wanted to see. Every time I stepped into a new city, I felt like I was reclaiming another piece of myself. Then one evening, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it, my heartbeat steady, my emotions calm. A few months ago, I might have panicked, wondering if this was the moment she finally apologized, finally understood. But now, I didn't feel that pull anymore. I let it ring a few times before answering. "Hello." "Hi," she said, a pause. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it has." Another pause. "I just wanted to check in." She didn't say she missed me, she didn't apologize, she didn't take back anything she had said before I left, but she was trying in her own way, and that was enough for me. "I'm doing well," I told her honestly, "better than I ever have." I could almost hear the hesitation in her breath. She wasn't sure how to respond to that. Maybe she had been expecting me to admit I had been struggling, that I had needed them all along. But I hadn't. And I didn't. "That's good," she finally said, her voice softer than I remembered. "I'm glad." That was it, no big reunion, no fixing the years of tension overnight, just two people on opposite ends of a phone call realizing that time had changed them both. And maybe that was okay. When I hung up, I felt lighter, not because my family had suddenly embraced my choices, but because I had finally made peace with the fact that they didn't have to. I had spent so much of my life thinking I had to choose, between my dreams and my family, between independence and love, between my happiness and their approval. But I had been wrong. I didn't have to choose. I just had to let go of the version of them that only loved me when I stayed small. And once I did that, I had everything I ever needed.